So let's talk clearing phone calls. How can a student get the best result from every single phone call they make?
Yeah, I guess you'll be doing a lot of phone calls and you really want to do them quickly because you'll be doing them in high volume and you want to make them count. It's about optimizing every phone call. So I think about the three E's, which are environment, empathy, and efficiency. To start with environment, then, the phone call is not going to be very productive for anybody if you're in a noisy environment. It's making sure you're planning ahead to make sure that you have this at your disposal, but you have a quiet environment. The worst thing that can happen is you're doing it kind of like on a bus or public transport or like at school, surrounded by your friends who are maybe celebrating their grades. So a calm, quiet environment. Connected to that, you want good Wi-Fi because yeah, you would potentially be looking up information, phone numbers, while making phone calls. And also connected to that is having good phone signal. 'Cause you don't want to be having a bad line when you're trying to hear important information and vice versa. I would also recommend having two devices. So your phone, which I understand is now a supercomputer in 2026, but for this purpose, your phone is your phone and nothing else. So if you're browsing, you want a separate device for that. So a laptop, because you'll type faster on a laptop than a tablet. The tablet is where you're researching numbers and courses and opportunities. And your phone is nothing more than a phone. Calm, quiet environment, good connectivity, and yeah, two devices.
In terms of phone calls, Simon, this is a tricky one, but there'll be some students who just don't phone anyone, and phoning people just seems the most surreal thing to do on the planet. Is there any tips you can do in terms of preparing for those phone calls? Because it's going to be quite a daunting day, results day, and then having to phone someone afterwards.
Yeah, I get it. Phone calls are quite an alien thing, maybe in 2026, or even just maybe the art of conversation. You know, we can now just order McDonald's by just tapping a big screen without even talking to anybody. So phone calls might be strange. Maybe we're more comfortable leaving voice notes for our friends, as opposed to kind of picking up the phone. But phone calling is a big part of clearing. There are universities that move away from the phone calls a little bit and do it as instant messaging. But for the most part, everyone's going to have a clearing phone line. And I think I'd even recommend that so you can talk through potential issues. Advice, I would say warm up your voice. It sounds silly to say, but you want to make sure you're going into that call without a strained voice. So you don't want it to be your first conversation of the day, for instance. So just make sure you've had a few chats with people, or a little bit of singing in the shower, whatever works for you, so your voice is warmed up. That voice is essentially a tool to kind of convey information. You want to kind of be warm and friendly, and also maybe self-edit as well. So you're kind of getting to the point a lot quicker. Because ultimately you're chatting to a human being. So putting a bit of humanity and warmth into your voice is fantastic. And I'm sure they'll be doing the same. So yeah, that can really help kind of build up a nice relationship with the person who you've only just met on the other end of the phone.
One other tip to share on that subject, that Simon and I have worked at a lot of universities and a lot of clearing phone lines and call centres, and you'll speak to some lovely people at universities. So certainly if you're not used to making phone calls all the time, you will speak to fantastic people that at the end of the line that really do want to help you. So rest assured on that one. Another tip from me, I'd say prepare, which we touched on previously, but it's so important just to get things like your UCAS ID, make sure you've got your grades in front of you, even go back and GCSE marks that you had previously, because you might be asked about those. And it's just having all that information so that when you're making the phone calls, it seems a lot easier for you. So that's the first E that we mentioned. But of course, we've got two more E's to go through. So Simon, tell us more about the other two.
So we've covered environment. The second one we've touched upon a little bit, but that's empathy. You almost want to help them help you. So the people on the end of those phone calls, just to paint you a picture, they're not all going to be admissions experts. Many universities use student ambassadors from a variety of different countries. Now, those student ambassadors on the phone line are gold because they can talk you through the student experience. But the flip side is they might know a bit less about admissions than, say, somebody that's worked in admissions for 20 years of their career. Equally, we're a brilliantly diverse UK higher education landscape. What that does mean is you'll probably be chatting to international students who may not have English as their primary language. So where I'm going with this is be kind to the person on the phone, be patient with them. If you show kindness towards them, they're going to do a much better job at helping you. So once again, it's help them help you. And that ties back to voice again. So being super clear in what you say. You almost need to resist the kind of the rambling, waffling nature, which can happen because it's an emotional day. So yeah, being kind and understanding, maybe not getting frustrated either, if they're giving you bad news that you don't want to hear, because they're doing their best. And also bear in mind, like some of these people on the phone line, whether it's a student, whether it's a staff member, Some of them will be in like hour 11 of a 12-hour clearing phone line shift. They're going to be exhausted, okay? So a little bit of kindness towards them goes a long way.
I suppose, someone on that subject, that in a way, if they're giving you, perhaps negative answers, whereas it might not be the news you want, at least if they're giving you that information quickly, it means you can kind of tick that option off and go on to the next university and make phone calls and move quickly, because naturally clearing, we do need to move quickly, don't we?
So the third and final E is efficiency. And once again, we've kind of set it up nicely with what we just said. Essentially, you want these phone calls to be meaningful, but essentially quite short because you might have a long call list that you need to get through. This is where kind of getting to the point helps. It's where preparing things like your UCAS ID, your grades, your GCSEs, like John said earlier, that's where it's so important to do that. And it also ties it up with this thing about trying to like remove the emotion from the situation. And it's a very hard task to do that. But what won't serve you is almost like, I don't know, apologizing for not getting the grades you got, or almost like pleading that they accept you anyway, because universities will receive your grades almost a week in advance of results day. So they've thought long and hard about whether they can be lenient and let you in anyway, or whether they have to very strictly say no, apologies. So that decision's made. Nobody on the end of the phone line is going to be swayed by anything you can say. The decision's made almost like way above their pay grade. So don't waste your time contesting the decision. The decision on your UClass hub is going to be final. So almost like move past it and get on to the next thing. Make those every second count of those phone calls. To some extent, warmth and humanity is wonderful, but there also is an element of being functional because the more concisely you give your answers to their questions, the sooner you'll get a decision on whether they can offer you an option or not. So yeah, keep efficiency in mind when you pick up the phone, and that will just help you get even more out of every phone call.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. That was Simon Fairbanks, Associate Director of Community Engagement at UniTasterDays. So, final question for you, Simon. UniTasterDays, I know, are doing absolutely loads when it comes to clearing this year. So, how can users find out more about all the resources available at UniTasterDays this clearing 2026?
You can find lots out about clearing on our website. So that's unitasterdays.com/clearing. And you'll find guidance and more of these videos and lots of things that will hopefully serve you well on results day.